All right. So we're starting off saying that bringing in Olympic Games is extremely beneficial to a country or city, wherever you are. It is great for your population growth in a short term, and it helps build your structures, your buildings, your transits, everything like that for a longer period of time. It helps revive your city. It brings excitement to the people and the citizens living there and to the people visiting and the tourists coming through. And it's really just a celebration of being together and uniting as a world to celebrate Olympic Games, athletics, volunteering for the many events that are going around. So it's a very big excitement and celebration for the people taking part. And that's our opening statement.
So we believe the Olympics are a negative influence on the world, causing harsh economic decline in specific countries, division between civilians in their own country, human rights violations, scandals, to the effort of just winning people will go to. For these reasons, we believe the Olympics should either change how things are done or not be hosted altogether.
Yeah. Back to the 4 points.
Sure, I will go first. Okay. For starters, the Olympics, the Olympic Games, they're not just an event that people go to. It's a beacon, a symbol of everything that it means to be not just an athletic person, but also, to what it means to be a human being, to have everybody from different walks of life, different parts of the world to come together for, once every 4 years, whether that be the Winter or Summer Olympics, and to come together under a common roof and to recognize the best of what humanity has to offer.
Does it go to them or
You keep on
stay
going.
us? All right, perfect. Because it also will help all those people unify and get together, and it helps those cities and countries build infrastructures and help their transit system work better. So if your city already has a bad bus line or it doesn't have a subway, those things get built to house these millions of people coming to your city, and you can get them through your city efficiently, and everybody's happy, and everything's all built at once in a short period of time.
Okay, the way we look at it as the Olympics cause a lot of civil unrest because the Olympics are they put the country on the forefront, like world stage. You see what a country really is made of. And a lot of countries they're violating human rights, which causes civil unrest due to issues like economic stagnation, severe inflation, unemployment, oppression, and a lot of political scandals. So the people of the countries use this as a stage to demonstrate how their countries are not really up to date with their human rights, and a lot of scandals come out of the Olympics. Like a lot of people, there's people that are they'll do anything to win. So there's a lot of violence, a lot of doping scandals. Even within the IOC themselves, the Olympic Committee, there's been a lot of cases where they've taken a lot of bribes to allow to give the Olympics to certain countries. And the last one that we had was with one of the examples was with Salt Lake City. The IOC were accused of taking bribes, and a few members were expelled. They were charged, but nothing was, all parties were acquitted. So that's those are 2 points on our side.
You talk about unity of bringing all these countries together. I feel like that's a very big point of the Olympics. But when these countries say they're promoting unity, but they force people out of their homes, when these countries say they're promoting unity, but are sending children to training camps where they're forced to go there every day under very strenuous conditions, and these are young children, 4, 6 years old. Should these children be in these kind of conditions where they're You also talk about the revivification that the Olympics bring financially. But a lot of games either break barely even, make a tiny profit, or in the case of Greece, just builds upon their already debt that they have. The Olympics in 2002 in Athens, their gross domestic product, they had a 1.4% deficit of their gross domestic product. A year later, it's 3.2%. Where's this growth that is supposed to be there from the Olympics? Where's this growth? We just don't see it.
Interesting point on unity and whether a country comes together or not now. We're not going to be a judge in terms of how a country comes together and how they decide to participate in the Olympics, because the Olympics, to many people, is considered a stadium of dreams where a lot of people come together, and how a country develops and decides to participate in the Olympic Games is completely up to them. No one is forcing them to go into the Olympic Games. They have a full right to decide, in the freedom of speech and equality. They have the opportunity, whether or not they decide to do that or they're in the best economic condition to actually attempt that. That's a whole other story. However, with most athletes, certain events, of course, really benefit from being in the Olympics, like sports like bobsled, skeleton, and let's say cycling as well. Nobody would know what these sports were, or they would have a very vague idea about the competitiveness of these sports, but because they're in the Olympics, they get a certain spotlight put onto them, which totally causes growth in these particular sports to occur. Like Canadian hockey is a classic example of just, if we have a situation where the country unifies under a certain sport or a variety of sports, it can be seen very much as a unifying element that can come back not just at the town level where the actual Olympics is taking place, but across the entire nation. Kids trying to grow up becoming these athletes, whether they do or not, at least they have an opportunity to do so, which they might not have had if the Olympics did not exist.
It also brings up the fact that it makes government officials, it shows that they're doing something wrong if they're not balancing a budget right, if they're spending too much money, if they're forcing people out of their homes. It brings awareness to people, and it lets the world know what's going on to make these things right, to say that we have to stop doing this. It brings awareness to it that maybe these people shouldn't be in government. So it brings awareness to people that we have to do the right thing, and it brings the Olympic Games together, that as a world we can say, no, you can't do these things where you have to kick people out of their houses or take people from their jobs or move them somewhere where they don't want to go. It's bringing awareness to that, as well as children, and saying, no, you can't do that, or we have to be a cleaner country, we have to build our stadiums more resourceful and use better materials and stuff like that. So it brings more awareness to people in higher positions.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you guys there. It's supposed to be 2 points each, 4 points altogether on one side, and then you go to the other side, and they each give 2 points, 4 points. So you guys, are you replying to their two, 4
we
points?
sit our
Are you in the
points.
5-minute open debate right now?
No.
Yeah,
No.
we're kind of at a weird point. So I think you guys are starting to rebut already,
Yeah.
are you?
I thought
Well-
that's what we were doing. So.
Okay, so
I
right
see.
now, let's end it right here, and let's just have 1 minute of prep before we get to the open debate, because I think you guys have both said your 4 points.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We're still on track.
Yeah, tied it up.
Yeah, actually, stop it. Yeah.
So you talk a lot about how these countries should fix a lot of their problems, how it brings awareness to what their problems are and how we can see how they should be fixed. It's very easy for us to look from the outside and say, that should be fixed. That is something that needs to be fixed. Here's how you should fix it. When you're on the inside of that problem, you don't really have a choice. For example, in China, when they built that bird's nest for 2008 Beijing Olympics, they moved people out of their homes. Some of them not receiving a fair compensation or an equal value home. They were just simply forced out, and this new thing was put there.
It's one thing to be a part of the Olympics and to be associated with the Olympics, and while it is unfortunate that there are stories like that where people, at the expense of other people, create these, otherwise fantastic pieces of artwork, to portray the games, at the glory that the game should be, but there's a lot of people that come in and unfortunately kind of taint it, or, human life for them gets in the way. What we're saying is that the Olympic Games, while the Olympic Games to an extent should be accountable, it's on the onus goes on to the countries and the politicians if they want to change their countries, because the Olympic Games, it's about bringing people together, celebrating why we love sport, and also understanding human rights and needs. And the Olympic Games is just that. It's a venue, it's a thing that comes in every 1 to 4 years, but when you have a situation where a country bids for it and they try to go for something that's really really expensive, they want to go all out, pull out all the stops for the Olympic Games, the countries that are hosting the Olympic Games, they should take responsibility for how they treat their own citizens and also how they treat the athletes and the organizations. If it's a terrible time at the Olympic Games, the only responsibility the Olympic community has is to say, well, maybe they don't get to bid for it the next year or the next set of go-round of Olympic Games. But it's not it's not necessarily the responsibility of the Olympic Games to be monitoring the going-ons of every single country. I think it's too big for any organization to try to police on its own.
Well, we're going beyond, like the Olympic committee, the Olympic Games are basically held in, they represent peace and unity within the world. But a lot of these countries that bid for these games don't promote that. Like it's like we have the like in Istanbul, Turkey, they bid for the 2020 Olympic Games, which they lost out to Tokyo, and they lost that bid because they had like severe violations of their democratic rights, media censorship, and they got involved in the Syrian war. But they were contestants for the Olympics, so the Olympics, they should use their influence to maybe to let countries know, well, if you're going to be involved in wars, if you're going to be involved with human rights issues, maybe you're not suitable for hosting a peaceful event like this.
And that's why they didn't receive the Olympic Games. That's why the Olympic Committee is taking in those bids and saying, they're going through each bid and saying, you're not qualified to do this, and that's why they gave those Olympic Games to Japan, because they find that it's a better place for the world to come and unite. And they gave the reasons why they're not holding them in Turkey, to raise awareness for people to say, hey, this is what's going on in this part of the world, and we need to bring attention to it. That's why we're not bringing the games here. We need to unite and celebrate in another location where people aren't fearful. They feel like their health and their lives are in risk. So let's bring it here where we can get together. But at the same time, they're also bringing awareness to Turkey and the struggles that they're having there as well.
You say that that is the case for you, and that may be true. However, countries like Rio de Janeiro, where they are rioting against these games because of the exorbitant amount of money they spend every year, yet Rio still is able to host the games.
You bring up a really interesting point, the economic cost. Now, economics, I mean, we could, at the end of the day, we could say this costs X amount of dollars, and to some people, like $10 might be a lot of money. To other people, it might not be, might be insignificant. The price of the money, with regards to the importance of the Olympic Games, look at how influential sports are as a part of not just our culture, but the culture around the world that participates in these sports, and how it brings people together.
Okay.
The Olympics bring out the worst in people and countries because, like I said before, countries that put up on a world stage or many issues, or the people want to bring their issues forward and say, well, look what's happening here. They're kind of like looking for help from the world, and then the issues get swept under the rug by the Olympic Committee and the countries themselves. And we look at, like, we say, well, like, spending money on these games that are only held for like a few weeks, that's good for the country. But look at Greece. Greece went into major debt after they held the games, which they still haven't recovered, which they are on the brink of getting kicked out of the EU before these games. And was that worth it for them? And there's other, like Canada. We had even expanding the sea to sky, highway through native land they're building on land that wasn't even theirs, and they moved like a lot of people out of like their way just to build these within even like countries like Canada, Brazil right now, where they're having a major turmoil because the government's spending billions of dollars on these games, where they're ignoring their own people, and the taxes are sky high, but they seem like they're still, they're not getting anywhere. And you said that people feel included in these games, but in Russia they had the anti-gay propaganda bill, and a lot of gay athletes across the world wanted to boycott these Russian games because they didn't feel safe, and a lot of their the non-gay allies were also wanted to boycott it, but since everybody's pressured into attending, so they just went through with it anyway.
Time.
Great, thank you. And closing statements here for 2 minutes.
The Olympic Games, we believe, is an attempt to bring the best qualities of human nature out, whether that be competitive or to strive to be better than your own self. The whole point of the Olympics is to bring awareness to these issues around the world. Life isn't perfect. It's, we're not living in a fairy tale dream. The world isn't a perfect place. So when a country like Brazil hosts the Olympic Games, it's great that the Olympic Games bring notice to these economic troubles that happen in these countries, because it points out that maybe these countries should reconsider hosting the Olympic Games. But should that be the responsibility of the Olympic Games necessarily to prevent a country that wants to outbid the other countries from hosting the Olympic Games? We think that the Olympic Games should be shared by everyone, and the people that can afford to do so, and the ones that can't or push their way through the system, because again, it's not a perfect system with regards to picking countries, but if a country is able to be brought to the forefront and shown whether or not a country should host Olympic Games, this is a great awareness piece that the Olympic Games is able to bring to the forefront and ultimately improve the lives of people in Brazil, because now the officials have to be held accountable because of the Olympic Games and because of the attention they would not necessarily have gotten otherwise.
Okay, and that's the debate. Good job, you guys.